What's going on? Okay. What's happening? Sorry, something is wrong with you. Please let me know if you can see my screen. And if you can see the slide.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Your screen is visible.
All right, thank you. This slide, right? Hello? Was it the slide you were seeing?
Hi, I'm seeing your laptop workspace. It's not a PowerPoint slide.
Okay, thank you very, very much. Okay, so good morning once again. Good afternoon, good evening. I know we're all joining from different parts of the world. And I want to thank you once again for taking out time to join this class. That's second second session in the series. So my name remains Titilope Bello, and we met last week. So on the screen here is my LinkedIn ID. I'm a Microsoft certified engineer, and sorry, I'm a Microsoft trainer, and I volunteer also to mentor for textile app. And so last week we took a look about cloud computing, and this week we want to take a step further to move forward in the Microsoft Azure fundamental track. So this week we are going to be talking about part 2 or module 2 of the course, which is Azure architecture and services. This particular module is also further divided into 2 to give us enough time to be able to cover as much as we can, and at the same time to be able to do as much lab or hands-on as we are able to, or as it's available to us. I know I took us kind of through last week where we walked through how we can create a subscription for ourselves to be able to practicalize things and get our hands on this week going forward. And I also said I will see if I could get Azure Pass, but unfortunately I couldn't. So Microsoft have made things so difficult, kind of. So I couldn't get Azure Pass for us, but I also remember that we have a few people who have who could leverage on their students' account from their various schools to be able to. For those that have probably dollar accounts, might not have problem signing up and using their credit card to create a subscription for themselves. Even if they're going to remove $1, I think $1 is just is not too much, to add to contribute to our learning. So, but if you do not have the other option, which you do not require to create a subscription for, is using the Azure Microsoft Learn Sandbox. So I just want to confirm, were we all able to get hold of a subscription that we can use for the class learning going forward? If you are able to, with a show of hands, yes, with a show of hands, please let me know how many of us will have access now to this subscription. Okay. Only Susie.
Since
Wow.
I have
Wow. Sorry, it's breaking. It's breaking. We can't really. Hello, it's breaking.
Okay. I was saying that
Oh,
I've had the Azure account for a while now, but I no longer have the $200 credit.
okay. So the $200 credit has expired. You will have to create a new one. You have to create a new one. But if you do not want to create a new one, it will be that. Hmm, what can we do? It will be that for now, you can make use of the sandbox environment. But probably if you still cannot get, even if I want to kind of share a subscription with us, by the time each and every one of us are creating resources, we might run out even in 1 week. So, but I will see. Maybe we will have to share resources with each other. I will share the subscriptions with each other so that we are able to. I think I have one somewhere that I might be able to spare. Yes. So I guess, or I believe right now is only Susie that have access to a subscription. Uh, Madam Ni, please, I don't know how you guys can help us to, if it's possible for us to speak with some people that can help with Azure Pass. If you are there, please, we will need your help to be able to skate through this one. Thank you. So we'll see how we can, but for now, for the class, you can make use of the Azure Sandbox. I will share the link accordingly as we go, once it is time for us to review or to do any lab around that. So this was, step by step. This was supposed to take us to walk us through how to create a subscription, but we did that last week. So moving on, let's start with this week topic, which is Azure architectural components. And then here we are going to be looking at Azure regions. We'll be talking about the region pairs, the sovereign regions, like the regions that are kind of not together with every other person, like they were created separately for those particular region, as Azure was created separately for them. We'll talk about availability zone, and we'll talk about the Azure data center. We'll review Azure resources and resource groups that are available. And then we'll talk about subscription, that's managing subscription, and what we call management groups. So management groups have to do with how you manage your subscriptions. or the hierarchy by which you manage your subscription. Then we'll look at the hierarchy of resource groups, subscription and management group. So let's move on to Azure region. Azure region really a region, right? Let me say a region actually represents a collection of data center, a collection of data center. So what it provides is provide them flexibility and ability to scale. So we talked about it last week where we said uh, when it comes to a cloud service provider, they will have to set up the data centers that are so large such that they might be in different regions across the globe. And apart from the different regions, different countries, even within the region or different states within the same region. That way, they are able to provide high availability. They are able to provide resiliency for their customers that are making use of these services. So what region does is also preserve data residency. So data residency that have to do with compliance requirement, right? Where the government in a particular country or region says the particular set of data cannot leave that particular region or can only be hosted in a particular region. So it helps prevent, preserve data residency. And then it's also best and then advisable or best practice to always select regions close to you. So that's why when you are setting up Azure subscription, for instance, you need to state one of the things you are able to see is the region or location, or there's location that is automatically seen to say where you are selecting, where you are subscribing to the service from. Take, for instance, we are subscribing to Microsoft 365 service, you need to select your region where you are subscribing from. And what that means is so that your data can be stored in a region that is closest to you or to your users. That's your data center, rather, can be closest. So it means resource access will be faster for your users. Then one of the things that we also need to be aware of when it comes to Azure is the region deployment availability. So what do I mean by that? When you want to create any resource in Azure, one of the things you must select is in which region you want to create that particular Azure. Now, resources by regions are also, or prices are also determined based on regions that you are subscribing to or you are picking when creating that particular service. Some regions are cheaper, some regions are more expensive. So depending on which region you select, it has an impact on the overall cost that you pay for that particular service. So there are global services that are there are global services rather that are region dependent. So which means there are some resources that you might find in some region and those resources will not be available in some other region. So overall, Microsoft have across the globe about 60 regions, which comprise of over 140 countries. That's how many data centers are available to Microsoft customers when it comes to Azure. So it's flexible, it provides flexibility and scale to reduce customer latency. That is in the area of you selecting the region that is closest to your users and provide data resiliency, as we have said before, for compliance purposes. Moving on, we'll talk a bit about availability zone. So availability zone actually it's physically separate locations within an Azure region. So it separates locations within an Azure region. So you have a region. Within a region, you have multiple availability zones. And um sorry, excuse me. So takes availability sunsets, it takes it to the next level in terms of within the same region, we can have multiple data center. And a data center can then be a backup of another data center. So which means all resources in data center within this region, if you look at it, you can see three availability zones, right? And within the availability zone, you will see that there are different data centers in this zone, different data center. So each of the data centers then are further pair with each other, such that when a data center um, fail in a particular zone, there will be another data center in that zone that is also backing it up. And there's now a kind of failover to another zone entirely. So disaster happen in one zone, so all resources will fall over to another available zone. So that way, users are not they are not impacted with their services are not impacted. So it provides protection really against downtime due to data center failure, like disaster recovery or any other thing, disaster, in case of disaster or any other thing that could cause a complete data center failure or outage. Like I said before, it physically separates data centers within the same region. And each data center is equipped with independent power, polling, networking, security, that's physical security, everything that is needed for a data center to survive. Uh, each data center is well equipped with that. So they are not sharing resources. And considering the fact that one data center, the distance between one data center in a region or in a zone could be significantly, okay, there could be a significant distance between data center. That's what I'm trying to say. Then it's connected all the data, the different data centers within the zones, and the zones are connected through private fiber optic networks. That means there's a lot of what we call dark fibers running around those zones that allow very high speed of data to travel from one data center to another. So okay, that's all there is about data center availability zone. Moving on to region pair. So
Sorry. Good morning, everyone.
good morning, ma'am.
Yeah, apologize. I missed what you said. I just moved away a bit from my system, but when I was coming back, I heard my name. We can't. Well, I think two or three of us can't see your screen. We didn't see the presentation that you just completed.
Wow.
And I think someone has been raising his or her hand for a long time now to ask
Oh,
a question. Yeah.
okay. Uh, okay, so I will just reshare my screen. It's showing that I'm still sharing. Okay, which one now? Yes. Okay, how about now?
I still can't see. I can just see the attendees, that logo. I don't know if it's for everybody too.
Yes, ma, it's also the same thing here. I can't see the
Yeah.
presentation, just the names of those in attendance.
Okay, so
Okay.
Yes,
Yes, we
good
can
now.
see now. Yeah.
Yes, good.
okay, okay, thank you. So you didn't see this?
No,
No,
we did not.
Wow.
From
Ah,
beginning, I didn't see anything.
wow. That's strange. Sorry, I wasn't. That's one thing because I'm presenting with browser, so I wasn't seeing the hand raised. Apologize for that. Can't see your screen. Please, subsequently, I'm begging you, if things like this happen, because I've been talking, it's better when you see the slide. Just unmute yourself and speak out in case I'm not able to see the chat as at that time. I don't know why I didn't even pop up, or I'm not able to see your hand. I'm sorry about that. So I'll just quickly. So Mrs. Nini, what we said was, sorry?
The presentation is no longer showing. The presentation is no longer showing. Okay, just come
Yes,
now.
yes, because I moved to, but it should be showing now.
yes, it is.
Yes, it's showing now.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to repeat what I said earlier to her. We're soliciting if it's possible for you to for you to help us secure some Azure Pass that we can use for the class. So for most of us in Nigeria, right? Most of us have Naira card, and right now, we know we cannot use our Naira card for any form of international transaction. So that's actually where the limitation is right now. And then there is no way that you will subscribe to Azure without putting your card. The only other way is if you get a form of credit that is given to you by Microsoft or some other people that have, that can, help generate such. So we also have option of student, but it's not everybody on the call that is a student that will leverage on that student access. And for some of us that have subscription before, their resources, their credit has been used up. That's because of they've created it before now, a long time, and they've been using it. So we don't know if you could help us talk to anybody who can help to generate a few Azure passes for us to use in the class. That was what I was asking for them. Thank
Okay.
you, ma'am.
Thank you
Yes,
so
ma'am.
much. Okay, that's not a problem. We'll let's connect after the class so that I'll know how many people, then we can take it up from there.
Okay, thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so this was the slide I showed regarding region. The key thing here is the fact that regions they are made up of one or more data centers in close proximity. So we talk of regions being created as a result of, it could be as a result of data residency or to help preserve data residency. By data residency, we mean there can be compliance requirements that prevent a particular business sector or organization to expose or to host a particular set of data in other region than the region where that business operates. So this majorly what region does. And then we talk about availability zones, and we said availability zones are created to protect against downtime due to physical data center or the whole data center failure. So if you look at the screen, you will see that we have a region here. And within the region, we have 3 availability zones. And each of the availability zones will have a number of data centers that they back up for each other. So one availability zone will be a backup for another availability zone. However, within the availability zone, one data center will be a backup for another data center. So if anything happened to a data center in a zone, that zone is not completely down. There are still data centers that will continue to render the services. But in the event of disaster, where maybe volcano or storm, a lot that is going on in some part of the world right now, happen to a particular availability zone, it means all resources, all services will fail over to another zone for users to continue to work. So, and we also said each data center in a zone is equipped with independent power, cooling, and networking, including physical security. So they are not in any time, or data centers are not in any time depending on sharing resources when it comes to power, cooling, space. They are not sharing. Then they are connected through a private fiber optic network. So here we can be looking at the likes of dark fiber. Dark fiber is a type of fiber connection that carry a very high speed. It can give you a very high throughput in terms of data that can pass through that particular fiber. And fiber is a mode of connectivity that we use in network today. So now moving on to region peers. I think somehow I've already talked a little bit about region peer. So each Azure region is paired with another region. Say we have Germany now. Okay, say for instance we have this before we go to Germany. Let's look at US. We have the North US and then we have the South US. So we have in this North US, it could be North Central US rather, could be pairing with South Central US, such that if anything happened to the whole of North Central, the South Central will continue to render services to all the customers from that were formerly using resources in the North Central. So regions, Microsoft have at least what they do is they enable or they establish at least 300 miles of separation between each region peers. That's in terms of distance between regions and their peers. Then some services provide automatic replication to the peer region. So it's not all services that can automatically replicate to another region. It's some selected services. And in an outage, recovery of one region is prioritized out of every peer. If there is any outage within a region, they prioritize recovering that particular region. And then when it comes to updates are rolled out sequentially to minimize downtime. So if you have, for instance, you have the North Central and the South Central region, and now is the update window has opened. So there is no way Microsoft is going to roll out updates to be happening concurrently in the two regions at the same time. So what they do is they start with a region with all resources in that region failing over to another region, and then complete the update on that particular region. And when we also say region, they start data center by data center within region. So you can imagine how organized it's going to be in terms of rolling out updates. So they can't do that to roll out updates to all regions at the same time. If you have any question, please let me know so that we trash it before we proceed. So now talking about Azure sovereign regions. In terms of sovereign regions, we are talking about meeting certain compliance and security requirements that might be needed. So you might have maybe come across a situation, or you will at some point in career, if you continue your path in Azure, where you meet a customer and the customer is telling you, oh, sorry, I hope my data is not going to be hosted in the US. I do not want it to be hosted in the US. So there are reasons for someone to say that. That's because of the kind of policy that in terms of data access policy that exists within different regions. So some regions have it that if anything happens, if there's investigation, for instance, going on, and that investigation kind of concern you. So whether you give consent or not to the US government, if they need access to your data, they will get access to it because your data is hosted in the US region, and therefore the policy or the compliance rules and regulation covers your resources or data that is hosted there. So it means to some extent, the US government will have some leverage to getting access due to either legal pursuance or compliance. So with that, that's why a region are created really. So a sovereign region, for instance, we have the US government services. It means security and compliance needs of the US federal agencies, states and local governments and their solution providers. So Azure government, so that's where we now have Azure government really. If you go to Azure, even Microsoft 365, you have the small business for Microsoft 365, for instance. You have the enterprise, you have the personal, you have the government, you have education. So likewise in Azure, you have the global Azure services or region that you could subscribe to. Then there are regions that are dedicated. Then you have certain regions that are created for government in certain countries. So US is not the only one. And then another region that we can talk about in this case is the China region. As we all know, that China, when it comes to internet, when it comes to data and a lot of things they do there, they try as much as possible to separate themselves from the rest of the world. So in this case, Microsoft actually created a data center or series of data centers for China use only. No other country can spin off services in the China region, can only be used by China. So, and it means the US regulations cannot be applied when it comes to China region or China resources that are being used by China. Likewise, China's rules and regulations cannot apply to US or cannot be applied to the US government. Each one of them have their own reason for requesting a separate data centers and regions to host their services and their data. So for China, it's physically separated instance of Azure Cloud Services is available for them, and it's operated by what we call 21 variant. Also, Microsoft 365, if you are doing some activity also, you will see the option of 21 provided by 21 variant. So all data stays within China to ensure compliance with China data. So very quickly, we are going to quickly look at a few of Microsoft, or see how we can explore the Microsoft global infrastructure. That's Azure global infrastructure. I'm going to be sharing a link for us to visit. Where is it? Okay. So if your internet is fast, so we can use like 10 minutes or so to see what is possible. Here's the URL, but I think I have it open. Can you guys still see my screen? And do you have any question before we move on?
Yes, we can still see your screen.
Okay. Thank you. So I've shared a link, so you can click from your side if you can, but I have it open already. And this is not the home page. This is, I've already moved on. Let me see if I can go back, kind of. So this is a 3D site that Microsoft have. Oh, sugar. That Microsoft have created for people to come and see virtually what their data center look like. So when you click, when you open the URL, let me see if it's still open. You can choose to, you click, there's one option there that says explore. Okay. Not this. Yes. Under Azure Global Infrastructure, just click Learn More. When you click Learn More, it's going to take you to this page, and it will load it just like this. Can you still see can you see my browser?
Yes.
Okay. So it's like this intro. If you have the page open, you can skip the intro here by clicking the button up here. But then mine has finished, it has finished playing. So we can click to explore the globe, or we explore the building blocks of Azure. So let's explore the globe. And here, you can take a tour to kind of, go through, that will take you through, what's available here. But at the same time, you can click a particular region to see more information about the region. This is Japan, for instance, Japan West. So you can actually roll the globe around and check and get more information regarding the various data centers. Sweden Central, for instance, the region with availability zones. It was created or opened in 2001. So which means this is still recent, kind of, which means Microsoft has not stopped. They are still providing or opening more data centers as more users are using the services. And if you see the location where the data centers are, we have Gavel and Gavu and San Viking. I hope I've not. So you can just take your time, click a few, icons, and then explore more around it. This is Saudi Arabia, and then the place is Riyadh. So you can get more information So just take like 10 minutes to explore it. You can go beyond that also by when you click below here, you see take a tour of the Azure space or take a virtual tour of the Microsoft data center. So you can choose anyone. That's what I clicked that brought me down to this place. And right now I'm going into the operation room. So just take some time to go through that. We'll continue 10, 11, 15. That's 10 minutes time. Thank you. If you have a question,
Okay,
while
hi,
you are,
Kitty.
yes, please.
Kitty, yes, I'm still not able to see all the links you're dropping. I don't know what I'm doing, not what I'm not doing right. Yeah, so the first one I couldn't see, but I didn't want to take the class back. This one too, I can't see. I can see your screen though, but I can't see where you dropped the link. And I tried to follow the instructions you left the last time, but no, I'm not still not able to. I
Okay.
don't know what I'm not doing right.
Can you see the normal charts, the normal, can you see the teams? That's the different teams, the cohort 4.
Quote, yes, I can see the quote.
Okay, let me drop it there and see.
Yeah,
Then,
maybe drop it on quote. I can see it there.
yes, I've dropped it there. And
Okay, let me check.
cohort 4, cloud computing, Microsoft Azure.
check. I hope I'm on the right platform. The only thing I can see was the only thing I can see is the pinned messages by Olayinka. Oh, that's the last message I can see on the port on cloud computing.
Sorry,
No.
Omotese, can I advise that you log off and log in again? Hopefully that would correct the issue.
Okay, all right. Let me do that. Thank you.
Welcome.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. So guys, while you are checking, you can take note of different icons and then click them to get more understanding. You can even look for your own location on the map and get, So I will leave you for a while.
It's still the same. I can't see any links being
Oh,
dropped.
okay, maybe you want to join on a computer. I don't know, maybe
Okay,
it's
let me do that.
yes.
Okay, let me just join the laptop. All right.
Okay. Uh, is it time? I think so. So I believe we're able to walk through, and I just want to ask if anyone have any question before we move on. Okay, so I guess no question, right? Okay, let me continue. Back. So can we continue?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you. So part 2, before we run through lab. Okay, moving on. So we now want to, let's look now. We are going more and more taking a step deeper into Azure now. Let's talk about Azure resources. Azure resources, they are actually components that a customer can subscribe to, or their type of service, or their services or available services in Azure that a customer can subscribe to. And the resources we're talking about here can vary from compute resources, for different compute resources, storage resources, and database resources, networking, or applications. So really, the various resources that are available in Azure they are inclusive of Azure Virtual Machine. And what does Azure Virtual Machine allow you to be able to host your own applications, uh, And most of the time, you want to use Azure VM if the resource or your requirement require you to have some level of control on the underlying operating system of that particular application. So that's Azure Virtual Machine. That's where it's going to be more useful. Then we have Azure Storage, and storage is used majorly for storing data. There are different types of storage actually in Azure. There's what we call blob storage. It can be used to store different kind of data like structured and unstructured data. You can store in storage in Azure. And we have virtual networks. So Azure Virtual Network allow you to be able to design your own network, bring in your own firewalls or other network devices, even from other vendors that you can use alongside what is provided for you. So it includes, it has gateways, it has VPN in it, it has firewall in it. A lot of things that make up the network is actually available to you in Azure when it comes to network aspect of it. Then for app services, Azure App Services allow you to be able to host your web applications, majorly web applications. The advantage it gives is that you can host virtually any application that is written with any framework. You can host it in Azure, and you can set up the services such that it can do what we call auto scaling, and then that's considering vertical scaling and horizontal scaling. So Azure allow you to be able to do that. Then we have the SQL databases. So SQL, there are different SQL version of SQL databases from different vendor. We have the ones available from Microsoft. You have the one available, Oracle is not there. And there's MySQL. There's even Redis. There are a whole lot of SQL database services that are available in Azure. And finally, on this page is Azure Function. So Azure Function allow you to be able to have a services or subscribe to services like media services, like a service that allow you to create some form of alert, some form of automation, some form of creating notification or creating workflows that link a particular resource to another. Take for instance, maybe you created an app service to host a particular website, and on this website, or to host a web form. This web form have to do with maybe employee web form or a training form. You want to organize a training and people want to subscribe. When they will subscribe, they have to fill this form. So you can use Azure Function to kind of automate something, saying once a form is filled, take this next step, take this next step, take this next step. That is majorly what Azure Function is all about and what it does. Moving on, we have resource groups. So resource group, majorly, they are containers for multiple resources, containers for holding multiple resources together. So when I mean containers, just take it like a briefcase. And in the briefcase, I can put in a lot of things. I can put in maybe my laptop. I can put my iPad can be inside this briefcase. I can have some notes like jotter, pen, or even things that I know I will need while I'm going on a trip, kind of, or for a business meeting. So Azure Resource Groups is function that way, allow you or help you to hold resources together in one particular location. So it help you organize it such that you don't have to be looking for resources. Just go into that particular resource group and you're able to see all the resources that you have ever created within that resource group in it. And what Azure Resource Group also does is, okay, I've said it, that it's allow you to be able to have your resources in one place. That's aggregate resources into a single manageable unit. So every Azure resource must exist in one group. So when you create any Azure resource you are creating in Azure must belong to a group. One. Now, a resource cannot belong to multiple groups, but multiple resources can be in a group, in a resource group. So what he also does is secure resources at the resource group level. So if you are looking at applying things like least privilege access to resources, you have people with different roles. In the resource, in your Azure subscription, you have your developers. They want to be able to create their app services and develop their apps. You have the infrastructure team that need to be able to create virtual machines, create databases, create different resources in Azure. And you have the security team as well. So everybody have their own specific need. So you can create resource groups for the different categories of people. Or better still, let's look at a large organization with large with finance. They want to be able to separate their IT resources based on department. So you can create a resource group for the finance department. You can create a resource group for the operational department. You can create for the IT department. And then when you create it, you are able to give each of the IT department, you're able to give them their own, each of them right to their own respective resource group that you have created. So within that resource group, they can then spin up different resources that they need to use. So resources can exist in different regions. That's when you create a resource group. When you are creating a resource group, you need to select your region, right? Now, the fact that your resource group, let's say, is in the US region, doesn't mean all the resources that you are creating within that resource group must be in US region. So you have flexibility to say, I created a resource group that is in the US North Central region, but I'm creating a resource that will be in UK or even in Germany, and one of the regions in Germany. They allow you to be able to do that. Resources can be moved from different resource group to another. Now, mind you, there are situations where you have created a resource and the resource you selected the particular region, maybe West Europe, for instance, and you feel, oh, you want to move this resource from West Europe to North Central US region. You cannot move resource that way. You have to recreate in the North Central US region, because the moment you create a resource in a region, you can't move it away from that region. You remain in that region. However, you can move it from one resource group to another resource group. So applications can utilize multiple resource groups. The reason for this is when you talk about applications, right? You have web app. Your web app have a database that is going to be talking to. This database will have a VM that is allocated to it, or even the web app have a app service plan that that app service plan is a virtual machine that give you access to be able to use IIS on it. So you can decide to put your app service plan in the US region, put your DB, your database, you can decide to host that in another region, maybe West region. If you need to create a virtual machine, you can create it in another region, and these resources that now make up together your website can all talk together, even though they are in different resource groups. So they can the application can actually make use of those resources, irrespective of the resource group they are being hosted in. So these are the kind of different resource groups you can create: web and DB resource group, maybe resource group to host virtual machine, or resource group to host storage only, meaning that resource group, only storage resources will exist in it. And let's talk a little bit about Azure subscriptions. Azure subscriptions provides you with authenticated and authorized access to Azure account. So like what we are trying to do, if you want to use Azure services, the first thing you need to do is to create an Azure account. I hope you can still see my screen, my slide.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So the first thing we need to do is to create an Azure account. An Azure account means creating, signing up for Azure. That's automatically you are creating Azure account. You can have Azure account without having a subscription in it. So once you have an Azure account, the next thing you want to do is to have Azure subscriptions. And you can have multiple Azure subscriptions in the same Azure account. So there's no limit to the number of subscriptions you can have. And where will you have a need to have different subscriptions? Like I talked about department the other time. You want the sales department to have their own subscription. So they will be responsible for their billing. For every resources they use within that subscription, they are responsible for it. Then you have need for a test environment. Like banking sector, for instance, it is not advisable or recommended for them to roll out new services straight or even build and test straight into production. They need a test environment. If you want to roll out update for your applications, you need to have a test environment. Deploy the updates on the application in the test environment, and then monitor the behavior. If the behavior is favorable after the update, then you can now roll out the same update into the same set of application in the production environment. So this scenario will cause you to have different Azure subscription for different purposes. So subscription can be based on the usage, it can be based on department, it can be based on billing requirement. So billing accounts, when you have billing account will be tied to the Azure account. Then from there, you will get each of the billing subscription, rather, each of the subscription, when you go into it, you will see the usage, what you need to pay next. If you are owing, they will generate invoice. Each subscription contains the invoice, but the account owner have access to all of the subscription. However, there is a possibility, yes, let's just leave it that way. Account owner can see all the subscriptions, right? So already I've explained this billing boundary that generates separate billing report and invoices for each subscription depending on how it's set up. Then access control boundary. So this can also be another scenario where you will have multiple subscription. That have to do with the department that we're talking about. You want finance department because they want to host their financial application. They want to host, they have even some developers in-house that design some things for them or automate some processes for them. They have ERP, some other ERP application. Then maybe you have HR, a very large HR, or company that have a very large HR. HR have a lot of applications in their that is in their bucket that they use in managing employee from start to finish, or from A to Z of employee management. So in such case also, you will need to have different subscription and give different users access to the different subscription based on their need. So like we said, the billing profile is tied to the billing account, but invoices are tied on the different subscription that you have. So invoices are not made together, they're generated separately. Moving on, let's look at management group. Management group are their management groups are ways or methods by which you group different subscription accounts together. So if you can have different management group that have different subscription under them. And this is used majorly also for security reason, right? You will notice, if you notice in the tree, depending on how you configure it, how many management group and how many subscription in management group have. Anything that is done in terms of security or compliance on the management group level, it traveled down to the subscription and all the way down to the services, that's resource group, sorry, and then all the way down to the resources. So you can use management group also to kind of separate resources right from subscription level up to the resources that is hosted. So management group can contain multiple Azure subscriptions, and subscriptions inherit conditions applied to the management group. Like I said, anything you do at the management group level travel down to the subscription up to the resources. So, and then we have in Azure, you have 1,000 management groups can be supported in a single directory. That's in a single Azure directory. Remember that the moment you create Azure, there's an Active Directory that is also tied to it or added to it for you to be able to manage user access, privileges, and permissions on the resources you'll be creating in Azure. So in that single Azure directory, you can have up to 10,000 management groups. And then a management groups tree can support up to 6 level of, depth, 6 level, that's 6 levels. So we have here 1, 2, 3, 4, but it can go that long. So which means if you have a management group, on the management group, you give permission to somebody to have access to subscription, that person will have access to all the resources. You can also decide to give permission or separate role based on subscription. If you do that, as you come down more, the depth reduces for the people below. However, from the person above, it is increased. Then if you can also give access to resources by resource group. So if you have just a single subscription, for instance, I can create a resource group for different group of people, though the billing is on the subscription, but everybody will be able to know what resources they are using. Then I can also give access or give create what we call write back based on resources. I might not want to give somebody access to the entire resource group. I might just want to give them access to just the resource they need. In this case, we'll take a developer, for instance, a developer who just want to build, write his code, and push it to the app service. All I'm going to give him access to is the app service. That's the particular app service that is going to be deploying or pushing his code to. That's where we are going to be. That's the only thing. Whenever I log into Azure, that's the only resource is going to see to work with. So now what we want to do now is to try and create an Azure resource. I'll just quickly log in to my own tenant and show you. Then on your own, we still have some minutes left. Where is it? Is it here? Is it here? Okay, it's not here. Let me bring another one up. See this? Yeah. So I have this. Okay, a minute. Trying to, I thought I opened it down. Resource group, do I have subscription? Okay, so I have I have this subscription here. This is my subscription, and we're just going to quickly create we're going to quickly create an Azure resource, monitor the resource group for needed resource being created in the same group. Okay, where is it again? Where are you? So here I have this subscription, and in it, what I want to quickly do is to go to Azure Resource Group. If you notice, I have a few resource group here already. But I'm just going to quickly create one so that we'll see, those properties as we create. What's going on? It's taking time. Okay, so when creating a resource group, one of the first thing you do is to select your subscription. You must select a subscription. So I'm going to be using this particular subscription, right? And then you give the resource group a name. Yes, give the resource group a name. Say Textiler or Easy Track. And like we said, you need to select a region where you want the resource group to be created. So these are the various regions that we have on the list. I'm just going to select one that I know is close to where I am, is the West Europe. That is West Europe. Okay, sir, stop. West Europe. So I create this, and then I click create. You check it, everything is fine, and it creates the resource group for me. Now, I have this resource group. What can I do on the resource group? If I click the resource group to open it or even select it, what option do I have? Let's go into the resource group. So this resource group is currently empty. There are no resources in it. But see what I can do. I can give access to somebody to kind of who will manage every resources in this resource group. And the access can be so granular that you don't have to give them access to create. I don't know what's going on. Is it internet? Okay. You don't have to give a kind of full access. You can just give them access to just what you want them to be able to do. So that's you have to go in terms of you assign the access in term of role assignment. So right now, it will check who have access to this resource group. It should be okay. Right now, I don't know what's happening. It should be just me that have access to it based on one that is selected here. So, but then if there's nobody here, I can just click to add role assignment or a co-administrator or even a custom role. So this way I can control what anybody do within this particular container or resource group that I've created. Now let's create a resource. And which resource do I want to create? Something is going, where are the tabs? My resource tab is missing. Okay, refresh this page. Okay, so you see, it's only Titilope that has access to this resource group. But then I'm going to refresh. Okay, so now I will just create a resource for virtual machine. We'll talk about marketplace later, but not today. So I'm going to scroll down here to select compute resources. What I want is a Windows server. No, not an image. Go back. Create a resource. So we're going to marketplace. Okay. It's a new way now. Okay, no problem. Let's make use of it. So I'll go to compute, and under compute, I can select Windows Server. It's a Windows Server I want to set up. So now, no, it's not giving me what I want. I need it to give me resources on Azure as against marketplace. So let me do this from here. Yes, this is what I wanted. I just went back to home and create a resource, and then I will select a virtual machine. That's what I want to create. And yeah, so for this virtual machine, I need to select a resource. Remember, say every resource you create must belong to a resource group. So I've selected my subscription. And the next thing I need to do is to select my resource group where I want to host it. Now, recall that this resource group was created in the West Europe. So I can decide now to put my resources in another region. I can put my resources in another region if I wish, but I will just leave it here in the West Europe. And give it a name, test VM. Test VM, and availability options here. So we're talking about. If I drop down, you see availability zone. You see virtual machine skill set. We'll talk about skill set in the next class. And then you see availability set. We'll talk about that in the next class as well. So right now, I do not want to, it's a test machine, but if it's for production, you want to specify all of this. So I'll just leave it as that. Security can have, I'll just select standard, because based on what you pick, it's going to either add or reduce your billing. So now the image I want is Windows Server 2019 or even 2022, depending on what I want to host on the virtual machine. And here I can click here to select. Oh, go back. I'm wondering why. No, it's size I was looking for. Yes. Okay, I haven't gotten there. Yes. So the image I'm picking is 2019 and architecture is 64 bits. Then we have size here. This is where you need to select the size of the virtual machine that you're selecting. The size have to do with the number of processor, the number of memory, and probably maybe based on the workload that you want to use it for. So you can check. So here, if I click see all size, I can either drop down to select. It will give me based on what I've been creating on my account. It will give you recommendation, but I can decide to choose, something else by going to the see all sizes. So see all sizes here. You have access to a whole lot. General purpose machine that are not, they are not for resources that are so heavy per se. So depending really on the heaviness of what you want to host on that machine, you can, go further and select the one that suits you. So for the purpose of this class, I'm just going to pick a small virtual machine like two. Okay, we can stick to this one and click select, and then you give it a name. This name is the local administrator account that is being asked for here. So I will give it TT for instance, and a password for the local admin password on the machine. Okay. So just majorly, so one of the things we want to do is to be able to connect to the virtual machine. So you have, because it's window, definitely is a remote desktop you want to use to connect to it. And for you to connect to it via remote desktop, a port need to be open on the firewall. So you can decide to create a um, a custom port. Maybe later after creating it, you go to the network part or the resource security group of the virtual machine, and enable the particular port you want. If it's a Linux machine, you enable SSH for you to be able to connect to the machine remotely. So we are going to leave RDP, and later, maybe after we've enable, configure, or install server rule, web server rule on it, we will want to come and enable HTTP or HTTPS also, so that we can browse to the website right on it. So this allow you, really, this is licensing. Is for large organization or organizations that have some form of license program with Microsoft before. So you can bring your license, your Windows Server license, into Azure, which means the machine side that you select, instead of Microsoft billing you for the operating system, they will be making use of the license you've already purchased from them. So that will reduce the cost of that particular virtual machine that you are subscribing for. So next is to review, and then we'll click to create. So that's how simple it is to create a virtual machine. So that I will not complete the whole of the lab, I'm going to share with us why this is going on, still rolling, but I still need one more step to create. So it's just checking it. Once you finish, I'm going to just click create to create the VM. So here, I'm sending a URL for the okay. So for those of us that did not have Azure subscription, I would like you to make use of this. Is that the right one I sent to you? Let me see. Azure Resources and Azure Virtual Machine. Okay, so yes, make use of the sandbox environment for the meantime to carry out the lab. And then I will share also with you a lab guide so that while you are there, you can complete it. Let me share. From this device. So okay, so I've just shared a lab guide for us that will follow to create the virtual machine. Okay, guys, am I the only one here? Do you have any question?
No, ma.
Okay, so let's, for the meantime, pending when we're able to get a workaround on the Azure subscription, let's make use of the sandbox environment. Follow the lab guide to complete, at least the sandbox environment give you a mini access to the Azure dev environment, to Azure. So please make use of that. Also, before we go, we have another quiz, and that will be week 2, part 1. We have part 2 next week. So I'm going to be sharing another quiz now. Okay, so I've shared a link for quiz 2, for quiz 1 of module 2. So it's already past our time. What will happen is I need you to complete the lab before next week, and then come with your question and we can review it together. Also next week, before we continue with the class, we'll review the responses to the 2 quizzes before we continue. So if anyone need more clarification on anything, then we can deal with that before we move on. Or if anyone have challenges with the lab, we can also address it before we continue in the module. So I think we have come to the end of today's class. If you have any question now, I'm available to answer it for you.
Ma, please, this quiz one for module 2, are we to do it now or for next week?
No. You have to do it now.
Okay. Right.
Yes, do it now. So I will have time to review it next week before we start. Because I don't know if anybody still have time to say they want to stay for us to review the answer together, but we can review it next week. So this is for this week, so that when we come next week, it will just be to review the response before we continue in the track. So thank you all very much for being in the class for today. I hope it's been worthwhile for us. And then I will also appreciate if you can let me know if there's a way you want maybe the training to go or the class to be, so that you can benefit the maximum, you can derive the maximum benefit from attending the class. Suggestions are welcome. So thank you all. I'm still here. If you need anything, I'm still here, but I will stop recording now.